Hey friends, Carl here again with Calm Survival, and we're still looking at knives. So this time we're going to look at the handle material and why that's important. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of some of the different options that are available. I don't have an example of everything. My collection is only so big. First off, on my kitchen knife here, this is called diamond wood. It's basically a semi-composite wood laminate. It's not very common in outdoor knives. It's more common in kitchen knives. It's pretty resilient, pretty durable. I mean, this knife is, 15 years old or so. Definitely don't run it through the dishwasher though. I mean, don't dishwasher your knives. It's just not good. But it's going to act like wood, generally speaking. Next up, we've got a material called micarta, something you've probably heard about. Micarta is a genericized term. Used to be an actual material, but essentially it is a natural material like canvas, linen, paper, compressed into a resin. So think fiberglass, think carbon fiber, same idea, just with a natural material as that underlying matrix. It's very, very common in outdoor knives. It's very, very durable. It is somewhat heavy, so it does give some pretty significant heft, but it is very durable. It doesn't get slick and slippery in the wet like some can. It doesn't get more grippy, but it definitely is pretty reasonable. This next one is known, its trade name is Grivery, and it's essentially the same plastic that car parts are made out of. So things like bumpers, things like that. Places that used to be made out of metal, but we now have plastics that are good enough. It is a little bit flexible, and especially on a very slim knife like this, that can annoy some people. It has just the tiniest bit of flex, but this stuff is very, very strong. So that can just be a personal choice, but I think it's a good one. It's quite light, so it's got some advantages. Next, we have G10. Oddly enough, G10 is basically the trade name for the material that circuit boards used to be made out of. Now it's a different material. It comes in a lot of different colors, a lot of different patterns. Again, like the micarta, it's essentially the same thing. It's glass fiber inside of a resin and made under compression. And again, it's generally very, very durable, generally pretty good stuff. It can be a little bit more slippy in the wet than micarta, but that's just because the micarta will naturally have more end fibers exposed, whereas you don't really want that if those are fiberglass. They're polished down. Now I have another kind of plastic. This is fiber reinforced nylon. It's pretty common in a lot of household products. Okay, it's just generally all around pretty solid, pretty durable, pretty resilient to a lot of chemicals, things like that. And because it can be injection molded, you can get a lot of cool shapes, but also it can help reduce the cost of a knife. So some of these other products like G10 and micarta, because of the labor involved in manufacturing them, they can add to the price. This knife has a rubber overmold over plastic. Because it's a fillet knife, you're thinking, slimy fish and all that sort of stuff. Adds a lot of grip, but it loses when it comes to chemical resistance. So you definitely don't want to spill anything on this knife. And that can be something that maybe with your more, if you're thinking survival-y kind of knives, something that's a more inert product might be something to think about. one more that I didn't put on the table initially. And this one, the handle is made out of a phenolic resin. Now, it does get pretty slick, which is, ironic considering that these have been a, very highly regarded and fairly famous hunting knife for a very, very long time. But it's very, very resistant to basically absorbing anything, smells, anything like that. So it will clean off. Any kind of slipperiness is taken care of by the shape of the handle rather than by the texture. And while it's not as durable as some of the other ones, it's been around for a very, very, very long time. And, nice and stable. And it gets the job done pretty well. Then, of course, we've got solid wood. Takes a little bit of care and maintenance. It's nice and cheap. Works good for garden tools. And some wood-handled knives can be quite nice. One I don't have a version of is a leather stacked handle. So basically the way they're manufactured is instead of having like a wrapping, it's a bunch of little discs all stacked up along the handle. Now, if you've ever seen any, World War II or Vietnam movie, you've seen a knife with that style of handle. Very, very common. They can be quite comfortable to use because the leather has a little bit of give to it. So they can actually be some of the most comfy handles. They can be extremely durable. They do need some care, love, and attention because it is leather. So a little bit of wax, a little bit of oil every once in a while, just to keep them in really good condition. But they work really well in the wet, in adverse conditions, because that leather is really, really grippable. And then, of course, we can go with basically no handle at all. Okay. Now, you could take cord and wrap around that, but keep in mind, if we're going to use that for food prep, anything that gets into that cord, basically, it's like using one of your kitchen tea towels as a cutting mat and then not being able to wash it. So it's cool, it looks awesome, but keep in mind that practically speaking, it can be a bit challenging. So we've got a heap of different materials available for handles, even just a plain, simple ABS, injection molding, all of those sorts of things are on the market. They all come at different price points. So when you're making your pick, just think about, is that going to be worth what it's supposed to do? Okay. This overmolding as an expense for my fillet knife makes a lot of sense. Does it make a lot of sense for a knife that I might have to beat on? Probably not. In fact, a more durable handle is probably a better idea. Okay. This looks really nice. But again, is that gonna survive out in the woods? Probably not as much. So just give it a quick balance in your mind, and you'll probably come to some pretty good conclusions on your own. But just also keep in mind that some of these can be pretty polarizing, and I have seen more than one comment in various forums and things like that where something is the worst thing ever because the handle was made out of one of these. And one other thing to point out is that materials like aluminum and titanium, those are all super common, more in folding knives and things like that. They have their own quirks and foibles, but if you have any experience with those materials in general, you can pretty well guess how they're going to act as the handle for something and what that's going to feel like in the conditions that you are using them in. So hopefully gives you a bit of an idea of the range of what's out there and what to look for. And I'll see you next time.